So because of time, I want to dive into, I'm honored and privileged actually to introduce one of our key influential people here in Nashville. I've had the privilege to know the mayor, David Briley, for so many years right here in Nashville. I don't want to say his whole bio for you. You can find it on nashville.gov and you can read it. But I want to share one story with you that really touched me. He is one of the reasons why I never stopped politically being active in my community. I remember it was around 2006 or so. I had just gotten married, I had a job, I was working at Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Coalition, and we were dealing with English-only ordinance. And so I helped organize and mobilize about 19 different leaders to come and talk to one of our key elected officials about how actually English only is not the way to be. And I knew that it affected my Kurdish community because many of our families, our parents, depended on interpretations when they went to see their doctors, when they wanted to have a conversation with their teachers. So I knew it wasn't it. And so I tried my best to convince this elected official that this is no way. Believe it or not, I got sentimental. He reminded me of Saddam Hussein. I walked out of there bursting with tears. I said, these elected officials have no soul. They do not want to take the time or the effort to gain the necessary knowledge and the wisdom to make the right decisions. And right when I walked out of that room, Mayor David Briley was there. He ran up to me. He was attempted to hug me, but my husband was standing there. So he begged back. And he looked at me, he said, I want you to know one thing. We're all not like that. That was very important to me. You know why? I didn't want it to have a singular narrative about our elected officials. And he gave me that other perspective. And because of him, I continue to become a source of knowledge for my elected officials. And so a little bit about him. He's a Nashvilleian at heart. He's been from here throughout his schooling. In 2015, he was elected as the vice mayor. In March, he was sworn in to be the mayor. He has served as an educator. He's an attorney by profession. But most of all, what I know about him, that he is one hell of a servant leader. It is a great honor and a privilege to have the mayor, David Briley, here with us today.
Thank you, Bayan Sami from the Kurdish Regional Government, and thank you, Kassar, for the overwhelming introduction. I'm going to say something about you in a minute, so get ready and pay back. It's coming. Also, I want to thank Dr. Zaid Rifkani for who spearheaded this conference, and Dros Kukoy, who also is a leader in this national community. So that's all I'm going to add a long speech here, but that's all I'm going to read from my speech. I'm going to go off now from the speech. So when I walk into a room like this, the inclination, I think, is to tailor my message a little bit for people of Kurdish descent. It's sort of, it would be easy for me to focus on the DREAM Act or the travel ban or English only or the anti-Sharia stuff that's happened in our community. But as I sat there, this was such an American conversation at the front. It could have been anybody. We're all sort of struggling with the same thing. Student loan debt, mindfulness, meeting your parents' expectations. So I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk really about just something general, because whether you know it or not, Nashville is already your town. It is already your city. It is already the place you are making. It is already the place you are going to lead in the coming generations. Maybe not the next mayor, because you're all pretty young, but the next mayor is likely sitting in this room. If people like me are successful. That's the big hook there, that's the big if. The great thing about the American experience is not religious, it's not ethnic, it's this fundamental principle that we're going to organize ourselves from the law up to maximize everybody's potential. We've got to organize ourselves, we've got to have laws that do that. We've got to have leaders who do that. So, three things I try to do to provide, to focus on, to be the top line, the thing that I'm thinking about every day. One is making sure that the playing field is level for everybody. The laws have to be designed in such a way so that everybody gets a fair shot. That hasn't always been the case, and even today we have issues there. We have real problems there. And so I try to make sure that, for example, our procurement, purchasing from Metro, is not totally fair to everybody. And we're working on doing some things to improve that system so that regardless of your background, of who you know or how much money you have a fair shot to get construction contracts and selling paper to the city. The second thing is access to educational capital. That's what I call it, educational capital. So, I guess 2 weeks ago, I went to STEM Prep, which is a charter school off Sitco Drive. And every room is full of newcomers, people who just arrived here. And in order for each one of those children to reach their maximum, their potential, we've got to do a better job of helping young people learn English, get socialized, and push them hard to maximize their potential. And so a lot of things happening at STEM need to be spread into every single one of our public schools because they're doing some stuff that nobody else is doing for individuals just moving into the community. The third thing that you have to focus on as a leader is making sure that people have access to financial capital. And maybe that's one of the areas where the Muslim community is really having a harder time in our country than others, just because of the way that we have set up our home loan system. It's much more difficult for somebody starting out here to get into that. So I'm working hard to make sure we make a difference there. This is the American principle. This is the basic for what you have to provide here. And it doesn't matter what your origin is, it doesn't matter what your religion is, or the color of your skin is, or if you're as tall as me, or anything, it doesn't matter. That's what we have to be focused on every single day. One of the other things that is an obligation, I believe, of a leader, an elected leader in this community, is to be present and respond to the citizens of the community. So I'm going to go over my time probably and answer a couple of questions. But before I do that, let me say this. I may have accidentally inspired one person, Kassar, to stay involved in politics, but every single time she tells that story or talks to me about it, she inspires me to keep going and to talk to as many people as I can and be present in their lives, just so people know, we do have an opportunity to succeed. We do have an opportunity to make a difference and change the direction of the country. We won't always have the same level of dysfunction and gridlock that we currently have in Washington or in our state. It won't always be that way. Your generation, the young people in the room in particular, are going to see a different set of circumstances. I can tell you that with certainty. There will be a moment in our future where the people on the fringe who are afraid and not well educated dictate the national discourse. That moment will pass. And we will get back to that truly American moment where we can all build a system that allows everybody to maximize their own personal potential. Between now and then, I beg you to inspire me like Kazar has inspired me. Thank you. If there are, this is your moment to ask me a really hard question. So, I'm ready.
So one concern I always had was not having any Middle Eastern thoughts on the ethnicity charts. ACT, SAT, any kind of university application was no Middle Eastern. And so we're just mixing with the whites or even the others, or sometimes people put Asian. So is there anything that we can do about that, or just any advice on that? And again, for those who didn't hear me, it's the issue of us not having a box to press on ethnicity. So we're under white or Asian or other for scholarships, legal documents, ACTs, stuff like that.
So, yes and no. A lot of those forms are generated by the private sector or by federal government. I'm meeting with Dr. Joseph, who runs the metro school system, day after tomorrow on Monday, to talk to him about it, in part about how the school system is the absolute worst at that. That they basically have 3 boxes, I think. So we do need to do a better job because people identify in different ways, and it's actually it's not helpful to us as a school system in terms of planning from year to year, because we know so little about the students coming in. There is some sensitivity to it because some people don't want to be identified at all. So we have to sort of figure out the proper way to do it. Lots of people are mixed race now as well, so it's more complicated. It requires us to sort of bear down and get a lot more detailed in the analyses and how we do it. So I'm working on that for the school system because that's the easiest place for me to start. Yes, ma'am.
I would like to just add to that. So the mayor is correct. Here in the United States, the rice category is extremely important. Some of it is federally defined by the census. How many of you guys participated in the census or know what the census is? And so the difficulties of the census, it boxes you into about 4 to 5 categories. You're either white or black, Hispanic, Latino, Asian. For many times, actually, Kurdish people were listed as Asian or other. How many of you guys have difficulties with the word other? What I do want to encourage you is that by 2020, the census is coming out again. In order to make change, you have to effectively ask for what you want. In the census in 2020, I encourage you to check Kurdish. Put in their Kurdish. We need to start writing in their Kurdish because you're not going to see it. I have a lot of issues with MMPS not capturing the data correctly. When you want to pull to see how many Kurdish people live in Nashville, Tennessee, how many of them are students in MMPS, you cannot find the data. So we are put in the white category, but we cannot benefit from being white. So in order for us to actually make sure that we become known, 1, we start changing the systems, we recommend that we be added. 2, I highly recommend you to push universities to do some research, demographic studies of the Kurdish diaspora in the United States. We should start be able to carry our own projects to see how many of us actually live here, how many different languages and religions, because the Kurdish community is not a monolithic community. We are a diverse set of communities. We must take charge of our own narrative. We must stop wondering exactly how many people live in Nashville and start throwing numbers at them, 10,000, 20,000. I think it's 15,000 because I just have 15,000 in my family. So we need to start taking advantage of the census in 2020, take advantage of MMPS public schools, start saying no. One thing we did at Valor Collegiate Academies, we added a subcategory after the federal categories. So the federal categories, very blank state. Then there's a middle one for MENA, Middle Eastern North African. And then the third subcategory is you can actually mark Kurdish. So it is possible to capture the data if we really want to be able to capture it.
That's all good advice. I also invite you all to sign up for the Qasar for Mayor campaign. So I do thank y'all for giving me an opportunity to come, and I'm here to answer questions whenever. And one more in the back. While you're walking the mic up to the back, there is a transit vote May 1st. Please vote pro transit, for transit. I'm required to say that. Yes.
My question is, as a educator major, I would want to be involved in my community and know the importance of parental involvement. And I think a lot of our community lacks that. Do you have any advice for somebody like me to get my parents, my students' parents involved in their life and in their education and outside of education as well?
The education of the child, the more likely the child is to succeed over time. So it is clearly very important. A lot of immigrant families coming to Nashville are coming from a very different system, or don't have a good understanding, or it's intimidating to be involved with the public education system here. That's something we're trying to work on. That's why I talked about STEM prep. They have a newcomers academy that is really good at trying to build those bridges and find ways for those children to get more engaged and their parents more involved. I mean, the only advice I would have to every parent is you better do it. I mean, it is like the most important thing in every child's life is for the parent to be involved on a daily basis with their child's education, and the failure to do so, it really set our kids back.
All right, time for one more question from Ms. Lamb.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I think it's great that you're here to show your support, so I want to thank you for that. I have a question. I've visited Nashville many times, but I'm not from here. I'm actually from London. But can you please put in context...
I heard an accent.
Yes. Can you please put the Kurdish community in Nashville into the context of the entire city's population? And for somebody in your role, what is the significance of a Kurdish community here?
I thought we were only going to get easy questions. The arrival of the Kurdish community here fits in pretty, that's easier to sort of figure out. And it's because we have had a long history in our community of, I guess, focus sort of in the best traditions of the Christian religion of reaching out to refugees and finding a way and opening doors in the best sense of that religion. And so that's sort of how we started. I think that's sort of what opened up the door here. In terms of numbers, I think it's significant. I don't know if it's 5%, 10%. I don't know. And I don't really focus on that. What I do see here is some systemic roadblocks to success. Some things that we have built into the way we work that are obstacles to the people in this room maximizing their success, even though they are already an important part of this community. Part of it is religious. This used to be the buckle of the Bible Belt. That's what we were called for a long time. And so there remains, I think, a sense of I'm trying to be nice here. I'm trying to use the right word here. Just people aren't familiar enough with each other. And so that is an obstacle. I think the financial system is a little bit of an obstacle. As I go back to just the ability to borrow money here, we have not worked that out yet. I've tried a couple of times to get through that and have not done it. And in America, people's capital, financial capital, is summer I'll get that worked out. Because that's important. People need to see that I'm making an effort. They need to know that when decisions are made, people with their background and experience are at the table helping me make decisions. So that's something I'm working on. And I'll just tell you, I'm learning too. I mean, I think that I'm trying to learn as much as I possibly can. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but I tried.
So without spending more time, I would like to get Noradin to come here since he is one of the people from the group that work in this field, and I'll let him introduce one of our great respected guests here.
Good afternoon, everyone. So we have Senator Jeff Yarbrough. He is senator for part of Nashville, the 21st District. And we are very fortunate to have him sponsor a proclamation for us on behalf of the Kurdish professionals and this event for our efforts and recognize us as the Tennessee legislator. And I'll ask him to come up and just speak a few words and explain the resolution for us.
Hello, everyone. I'm in a phenomenal mood because I just learned the Nashville Predators just won Game 2. So, yes, go Preds. But it's a real honor to be here. So I represent the 21st State Senate District in Tennessee, and our districts are sort of deliberately carved up in ways. But the district that they've drawn that I'm fortunate enough to represent is probably one of the most diverse. It's not probably, it is unquestionably the most diverse that exists in the state. Not only does it have a large white population, large black population, it has the largest Latino population in the state, largest Muslim population in the state. And one of the real joys of being an elected official in this district is that you have to get out of your sort of normal routine and meet people in different parts of town. And, you know, when you're trying to find food at 3 a.m. during the last 10 days of Ramadan, like, you're in a particular part of the world, but you start sympathizing and catching, not, when you start appreciating those differences, what you really end up doing is appreciating our similarities. And I so desperately wish that my fellow legislators had the opportunities that I've had in that vein. But right now, we, as Mayor Bradley mentioned, we are going through a time of where politics is dumb. I mean, there's a time of just sort of a smallness and divisiveness in our politics that's just unbecoming a great country. And, you know, when I come to speak to the Kurdish professionals, when the Kurdish population started really immigrating to Nashville, you know, in large numbers in 1990, right? That was almost 30 years ago. Nashville's population at that point was under 500,000 people. It's grown 40% since then. You know, 1 out of 3 people in this city has a better claim of being a newcomer than this community. And I think that it's one of the most interesting roles. This community is both serving as mentors for, you know, the young people that are in this room, but also the foundation of the coalitions that help us try to make government work a little smarter for everyone. And most people really, at the end of the day, like when I have a real conversation with us, I'd be like, we really want to talk about education or jobs. We end up having to talk about this kind of silliness of sanctuary city policies and what Donald Trump is tweeting this week. But we fundamentally want to get back to dealing with just bread and butter issues of getting a good job, feeling safe when you're in your neighborhood, feeling like your kids are going to get a good education and be able to live the best life possible. And I am so excited that this organization exists, so excited about the work that you're doing, the leadership you're showing, both within the Kurdish community of Nashville, but really within the entire city of Nashville, because it does honor to us all. And I am, during the last few years, I think it's been a hard few years in some ways, but we've also made progress. We've had Friday prayers in the Tennessee Capitol the last 2 years. We have had more visible and more aggressive advocacy on the ground, going door to door, talking to legislators than we have ever had, and that's a credit to so many of the people that are in this room. And it's an honor to represent so many of the people in this room and to be here to present a proclamation signed by our Lieutenant Governor, the Speaker of the Senate, and myself, which recognizes the annual Kurdish Professionals Conference and the work that you're doing here today. And I just want to say thank you, congratulations, and I hope that everyone in this room will always reach out to me if there's ever anything I can do. Thank you. I think Mayor Bradley took all my question times and y'all actually want to eat, but I'll stick around for a second if anybody has questions. Otherwise, I will see you soon and vote yes on May 1.
Alright, so up next I would like Muhammad Hassan to come up here. He will be awarding the Community Leadership Award.
We've all lived in Nashville for over 20 years, almost 30 some of us, and when we started planning this conference, we decided that we've all been here for a long time, and there's been people in our community who have shown great leadership over the years, and we just wanted to try to honor one person every year. And for our inaugural award, we would like to give it to Ms. Ramzia Suleiman. However, she does not live here anymore. She currently resides in Canada, and I spoke with her yesterday. She regrets not being able to make it, but she wanted to thank everyone. She wanted to thank Kurdish Professionals for the award. I just want to read out some of her resume is very impressive, by the way. She got a Bachelor's of Political Science at TSU with a minor in International Affairs. She also got a Master's at TSU in Public Administration with a certification in Nonprofit Management. She was a Policy Director at the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition. Also, she was an Interim Director of Advocacy there. Then she worked at the Young Women's Christians Association as a crisis counselor, and she later transitioned into being a co-founder of the Centers for Outreach, and she was the Director of Policy and Administration. Later, she worked as a Director of Congressional Affairs and Academics at the Kurdistan Regional Government in Washington, D.C. And to accept this reward on Ms. Ramzia Suleiman's behalf is a good friend of hers, Amir Mohammed.